Hello everyone and welcome to this week's iStorm Live Lounge. I'm Mi Elfverson, I'm the creator of iStorm, and the Live Lounge is here to introduce different people on different topics to share their expertise, educate, inspire and motivate us. And the Live Lounge is currently in lockdown mode, so it's done by Zoom, which is why sometimes there's a little bit of an audio lag and the quality might not be that high, but hopefully you can hear the essence of the topics we are talking about. And today we are going to talk about the importance of mindset tools you can apply. So I brought in Caroline Ferguson, who is a mindset trainer, and we're going to talk about the mindset tool that will carry you and your business through the corona crisis. Hi Caroline, and thank you so much for joining the Live Lounge, and please tell us a little bit more about what you do.
Hello, Mi. Thank you so much for having me on the Live Lounge. Really excited to be here talking to you, actually. Really looking forward to this. And hello, everybody who's listening. And yes, I'm a mindset trainer. People ask me what that means. It is basically, I don't call myself a coach. I call myself a trainer because I take people through a process. I trained as a cognitive behavioural hypnotherapist. And so really, the work that I do is rooted in therapy, essentially. It's very transformative. And there is definitely a process that we follow to help people think in a healthy and flexible way and to be able to tune into what I call the inner radio. So that's essentially what I am, cognitive behavioural hypnotherapist and somebody who helps people to manage their mindset.
So today we wanted to talk about the current situation because
Yes.
A lot of people are, of course, there's a lot of uncertainty all around us, whether we're in business or whether we're just trying to cope, or we might not actually have the same business that we've had before this started. There's a lot of anxiety, overwhelm, and some people can even feel a bit numb. So we wanted to support these with a tool you have, or a little bit of a process that you can help people with. Tell us more about what this is.
So we can call it a tool, we can call it a skill, but I think the most important ability as humans that we have that's going to lead us to live successful lives and also to run successful businesses is the skill of self-awareness. And that might sound really obvious, but actually only about 15% of people genuinely are self-aware. That figure came out in some research by an organizational researcher called Tasha Eurich. And if you have time, go and read her book, Insight. It's fantastic. But the skill of self-awareness is about understanding who we are at depth. It's about knowing what we are, the stories that we're telling ourselves, listening into that inner radio, our self-talk. We have 20 to 70,000 thoughts a day. It's about being able to tune into those stories when it's important. And it's about knowing our values, and it's our personal values, not the ones that we inherited, the ones that we've come to know. And so self-awareness is also about understanding how the world sees us reasonably objectively. So it's not self-consciousness, which a lot of people get muddled up with self-awareness, but it's about knowing ourselves in depth. And as I said, this only comes naturally to about 15% of people. So probably among the most important bits of work I do with my clients is about helping them to develop self-awareness. And there are various tools that can help with that. And I'm going to share one or two of them with you during this chat, if I may. But really, that I believe is the number one life skill, not just for us personally, but also to help us in business.
Self-awareness, just to make it clear, it's not the same as self-conscious, being self-conscious.
No. Self-conscious is about having this hyper awareness of what others might think of you. It's about that feeling of being exposed, and it's about constantly looking for validation outside of yourself and wondering what other people are thinking of you. That's self-consciousness. Self-awareness is internally knowing ourselves in depth. It's about knowing ourselves in the way that we know our best and oldest friend. We know what they believe, we know what their values are, we know what's important to them. But it's amazing how few people genuinely know that about themselves. And self-awareness is, thank goodness, it's a skill that we can develop. even if it's not one that comes naturally to us. And that's a lot of the work that I do with my clients, is really helping them to be able to tune into that inner radio, understand what their stories are, what their beliefs are, understand what's holding them back, you know, the obstacles and the frustrations that are getting in their way. And also just really being able to manage themselves on a moment by moment basis because they know what's going on.
Okay, so how can we develop self-awareness? Tell us more about that.
Well, it might sound really obvious, me, but the way to do it is through practice. First of all, you kind of need to know how, which is the question you're asking, but then you just have to keep practicing. So the most obvious way is to be able to listen in to your own thoughts, to your own beliefs, to the stories you're telling yourself in any situation. We all have, you know, we are evaluative and analytical by nature as humans. Our brains, you know, are evaluative. We're constantly weighing things up and coming to conclusions. Some people call them judgments, some people call them observations, some people call them opinions, whatever you call them. We need to be able to tune in and listen to what our evaluations are of any particular situation, because it is those evaluations, those opinions, those beliefs, those judgments that determine how we feel, how we behave, and what we say, and how we think. So all of those consequences for us, our thoughts, our feelings, our behaviors, are all linked to the stories that we tell ourselves. And it's absolutely essential that we should be able to hear those stories. So what I advise my clients to do is I make them all, my one-to-one clients all get a semi-precious stone bracelet that I make for them, a stretchy bracelet. So I advise people, wear a bracelet or wear a rubber band, one that's stretchy. And when you feel the time to listen in, the kind of flag moments, if you like, are when you feel uncomfortable, when you feel emotionally out of equilibrium. So anything other than even keel or positive, if you're feeling upset about something or angry about something or frustrated or anxious or any of the more uncomfortable emotions, you need to then go inwards and say to yourself, you know, what's going on here? What do I believe about this situation? And that, when you get used to doing it, so what I advise people to do is ping that rubber band, ping that bracelet. As soon as you feel uncomfortable, you know, go to that thing and ping it, and that interrupts it. It creates a physical cue to interrupt what's going on emotionally for you, so that you can then get curious. And it's about compassionate curiosity. Go inside, listen to that radio, and think, right, what's the story here? What am I thinking? And that way, if you do this every time, and do it when you're excited as well, you know, do it when you've got a positive emotion too, actually, because that helps you to get to know yourself, to get to listen into the thoughts that you have, the thought patterns, the habits that we develop, and some of those deep-rooted beliefs, the themes of which will just crop up again and again and again. And obviously, I've got various tools that I share with my clients, and I will share one or two with you here, but there's quite a chunk that you can do when you're working one-to-one with a trainer or a coach. Obviously, we don't have time to go through in this half hour, but it's really developing self-awareness is all about the practice of going inwards and listening to what's going on.
So can you give us any example of how this might play out for someone who is anxious or worried at the moment? How can this support them?
Okay, so why don't I use me as an example? Because I've had to go through this. I'm a small business owner as well. At the beginning of this year, I was supposed to be on an adventure where I'd sold my house and I was going to be house sitting all year, exploring the UK, moving around to different places to find out where I want to live next. I got 3 house sits in and coronavirus hit. So the whole of my year has disappeared. So I've moved in with my parents to help look after them during this phase. And of course, from a business point of view, I was going to work with one-to-one with 12 clients, and I was going to do 12 paid talks. That was what the year that I had shaped for myself. It was a year that enabled me to have this adventure and to write and not to be too involved in work. Now, what happened was in January, my year was looking extremely good. I had 3 clients in situ, another 2 lined up, and I had 4 corporate talks. Come the end of February, beginning of March, all of that changed. Not only did I have to kind of move here, actually it was the end of March, I had to move to Scotland, but also two of the people that I was hoping to work with next contacted me to say, could they postpone working with me? They still wanted to do it, but right now it felt like a luxury they couldn't afford to invest in themselves. And I completely understood that. Also, the 4 corporate talks, I asked if they wanted to do them as webinars, and so far I haven't had a reply. All I know is that the first one is in May and it's certainly not going to take place. So I'm looking at loss of income. And going forward, I have to really think about how I make sure that I stay relevant to my clients so that they don't consider investing in me is a nice to have rather than a must have. So I'm going through a lot of the things that I'm sure the members in this group will be going through in terms of, do I still have a business? Do I still have a viable business going forward? So I realized that I had a bit of anxiety about this about a month ago. So I did some self-coaching on myself, and I did exactly this process. I looked inwards, I said, what is the story I'm telling myself here about what's going on? And I realized that my story was, nobody will want to do mindset training now. And actually, you know, that is just a fabrication. It's just a piece of fiction. There are plenty of people who may want to do mindset training, perhaps not at my highest level, but there are plenty of people who are uncomfortable in this situation, who need help with managing what's going on for them emotionally. So I was able to look at my offer and how I can make it more relevant to what people actually need right now, which may not be my kind of diamond level VIP nice to have training, but is much more about the kind of crucial being able to manage mindset and emotion in these difficult times at a much more kind of affordable rate. So, you know, I was able to look inside, become aware of what was going on, what the story was that was driving me to feel anxious, and then do something about it.
Big shift for you personally, Caroline, and thank you for sharing that. It's always great to hear an example and see what other people are going through as well, because there's so many different stories as well, and we need to realize that we have absolutely all levels, and of course some people will need your coaching more than ever, or training. So was there a specific tool that you applied to yourself?
Yes, there was actually, and it wasn't one of my particular tools, but it's one that I use with clients, and it's actually an old-fashioned business SWOT analysis. And I'm sure that many people in this group, you know, who may have come out of corporate will have used SWOTs before, but I found it really helpful to be able to focus me on what was going on for me, on what the opportunities are. So for those who aren't aware of what a SWOT analysis is, there'll be something that you can download here. I've put together a personal SWOT analysis that you can download after listening to this. And SWOT is an acronym that stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And it's just worth talking through these to look at the differences. Strengths and weaknesses are about you, or about your business if you're doing it from a business point of view. So they are intrinsic. They are about what you do well, what you're good at, what raises your energy, what other people think you're talented at. You know, those are your strengths. Your abilities, your connections, your networks are also strengths for you. So really look objectively at what your strengths are. And if you're feeling hopeless and useless and at the moment irrelevant perhaps to what's going on, your business you may feel that your business doesn't match the needs of what's going on at the moment. Have a look and remind yourself of your intrinsic strengths. And it's worth doing a SWOT analysis for you personally, as well as for your business. And then the weaknesses are also intrinsic to you. It's about where you're lacking, where perhaps you could do with additional strength, where the gaps are in your offer. It's also about what lowers your energy, what doesn't make you feel good. So those would be your weaknesses. And remember, they're about you, not about what's going on in the market. Then you've got opportunities, and opportunities and threats are external. So while strengths and weaknesses are about you or about your business, opportunities and threats are about what's going on outside. It's about what could, where the chances are for you, but also what could derail you. So the opportunities really are what's going on in the market, what is the need, who is your ideal client, and what do they need right now? Those are the opportunities. And you can see at the moment there are people jumping into those gaps all over the place. They're pivoting their business, pivot being the word of the moment. You know, they're kind of swerving to fill those little gaps really quickly. And that's something you can do too. If you know your ideal client really well, what is it that they need right now? Those are the opportunities. And then the threats are what's coming from outside that could get in the way. And clearly coronavirus is both an opportunity and a threat. You know, it could be taking away your business, but equally it could be creating opportunities for those gaps. It's about competition. It's about understanding, perhaps looking forward at the financial landscape, which I sat in on a webinar the other day, and I'm afraid it's not looking great financially for us. So we may have to adapt what we're doing and what we charge and the value of our offer in order to meet the landscape that is approaching us. So doing a SWOT analysis on yourself is going to really put you in a position where you understand yourself. You become more self-aware. Now, all of this is stuff that's floating around in your head and you kind of know it, but when you bring it together onto one page and you really look at it, it can provide real clarity for you about how you move forward. So I really recommend that everyone does that for themselves and their family perhaps, and also for their business.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for sharing that. It will be a link leading to this SWOT analysis. And I mean, I've been talking about this for a while, how important it is to see your fears, because when we can break them down and understand them, we can move on and also train our brains to understand that a lot of our fears aren't actually real. They are just things that we think or have as previous patterns and behavior that might not actually be true even. So when we can analyze it and see how we can move forward, and the feeling of that nothing actually happened, you know, it was fine, then we are training our brain to actually understand that. So we lower that fight and flight reaction that we get, and which is so damaging physically for us as well. And to have that self-awareness, it's doing the same thing, because when we release anxiety, fear, and have a bigger understanding, we can become more creative. And I think it's really important to find that creativity at the moment.
Absolutely. And the thing is that when we're in a stressed, when we're in anxiety, you know, I call it that vortex where we're stuck in anxiety and we just keep going round in that loop. We cannot engage the prefrontal cortex, what I call the dragon mindset. You know, the wise, creative, adult, solution-focused self gets lost. It gets kiboshed by the emotion. Whereas when we're able to stop, and that's what that little ping of the elastic helps to do, it helps to interrupt the emotion. We're then able to go inwards, ask the question, what is the story here? What's the story? Because it's about taking emotional responsibility, and the story creates the emotion. If you change the story, if you change the belief, if you challenge it, it changes the emotion that comes out. And you can end up being far more solution focused, far more able to look at that problem objectively and solve it, or at least to do something to help yourself feel better in that situation. So yeah, it's absolutely crucial. You know, that looking inwards, that self-awareness is really, really important.
And another thing that I would like to mention is also that you need to look at solutions that might not just, a lot of people, they just need cash at the moment to survive. I understand that, or we know that. But in some cases, it could be more valuable to look a bit more long-term. What is it that is I can develop, that I can stick to, that is still going to be needed? So looking a bit more long-term rather than where's a quick cash, because that's likely to die out, and then you're stuck in a new situation of concerns.
And because this situation is not going to fix quickly. You know, looking backwards at the last recessions, because we are headed for a global recession, there's no doubt about that. This is not a quick fix. The last few recessions, on average, have taken 1,000 days, 3.5 years to really start to resolve. And the feeling generally amongst the economists is this one's going to be longer, because so many of the massive businesses are going to be, you know, going out of business. All of those that depend on footfall. But on the positive side, there are going to be investors who are ready to take those businesses and help them to start back up again, buy those businesses, because, you know, they've been well run up to now, they've got great assets, they've got, you know, great employees. So there will be people who are able to, you know, buy up businesses and help them to get going again. But there's no doubt that this is going to take a long time. So we do need to be looking not just at survival mode for now, but about how we maintain ourselves, how we, we need to be self-sustaining. We need to have the energy for the long haul on this one. So you're absolutely right. Yes, crisis measures for now, but we also need to be thinking long term. How do we make ourselves really relevant? How do we make sure that our business is a must buy for somebody, not a luxury, not a nice to have? So yeah, you're absolutely right on that.
Fabulous. Well, thank you so much, Caroline, for sharing this and for sharing the link to the SWOT analysis that everyone can download and do for themselves or their family members even, and of course the business. Anything else you wanted to share? Any other tips or advice?
Actually, I'd love to leave you with my 3 favorite questions, and anyone who's seen me talk will know that I trot these out regularly, and that's because the more you hear them, they really work, and the more you hear them, the more they become second nature to you, and kind of the muscle memory of the mind. And these are 3 questions that I teach all of my clients. I've adjusted them slightly because we haven't gone through the mindset training process, but I teach my clients all of my clients these 3 questions because they will help to empower you in any situation, even situations that are outside of your control. You can actually, the thing that you can control in any situation is is us. It's how we respond to a situation. And when you change your own point of view, you change everything. So I'll just talk through these 3 questions. They're very quick, but they're hugely empowering and effective. So if I were you, I would just write them down on a card somewhere. I think we'll have an image that pops up to just show us what they are. But in the meantime, I will just go through them. So question number 1, and I've already mentioned this several times. These questions, incidentally, are all about self-awareness. So question number 1 is, what story am I telling myself about this situation that's leading me to feel this way? And that last bit is really important, that's leading me to feel this way, because it's about taking emotional responsibility, being accountable for our own emotions. Yeah, when stuff happens, bad stuff happens, of course it's appropriate to feel bad about it, but the nature of how we feel, the extent to how we feel it, is down to us, and it's down to the story we tell ourselves. So the question is, what story am I telling myself about the situation that's leading me to feel like I do right now? And often that story is going to be a demand about something. This mustn't be happening. This has to happen this way. You must behave like this. That my business mustn't be under threat. It's going to be all those musts. Problem with musts is there's always an or else. You must behave like this. My business must survive, or else it's terrible, or else I can't cope, or else it makes me inadequate in some way. So that question, what story am I telling myself about this situation that's leading me to feel this way, is number 1. First of all, we have to know what's going on and what we're telling ourselves about it. So number 2, empowering question number 2 is, what would be a good outcome from this situation? Now, we're not talking about the ideal long-term outcome or the perfect outcome. We're just saying right now, with what we're going through, what would be a good outcome? And sometimes the good outcome is just that we don't feel so wound up, so that we're able to then take further action. So what would be a good outcome from this situation? Now, what that does is, once we've interrupted the spiral, the vortex of emotion in question 1, this one engages the prefrontal cortex, your dragon mindset, your wise, creative self. What would be a good outcome? And then question 3 is, what action can I take? What can I do right now to help make that good outcome happen? And that one, again, you're engaging that prefrontal cortex, your solution-focused creative brain, and you're also giving yourself something that you can do. So you're no longer hopeless and helpless. You are now in a situation where you've got your wheel back between your hands and you're able to steer where you go. And in any situation, even one that we can't have any kind of impact on right now, such as the coronavirus situation, we can't change what's happening. What we can change is our position within that, how we think and feel and act in that situation. So these 3 questions, just to have a quick recap. Number 1, what story am I telling myself about this situation that is leading me to feel like this? Number 2, what would be a good outcome from this situation? And number three, what can I do to make that good outcome happen? And then the most important part of it is you need to take that action right away while you've come up with it, while you've got that momentum, while you've managed to interrupt that emotion. You know, you have now got a better story about that situation, which is, I am not hopeless. This situation is not helpless. There is something I can do. I can take charge of myself. So I would really recommend that you write those up somewhere, have them as cards, so that in any situation where you feel out of control, where you feel stressed, where you feel anxious, where you feel upset, you know, those three questions can help you get back in charge of yourself in any situation.
So taking action, obviously always so important, because nothing's going to happen if we don't take action to create your own best outcome. So if you haven't done the SWOT analysis lately, please download that. Thank you so much for sharing it, Caroline. And ask yourself the three questions, really valuable questions that could be very supportive for you right now. So Caroline, I wish you all the best. What's the rest of your day looking like at the moment?
Well, I'm doing 2 talks tomorrow, so I'm preparing for those, but I'm going to go for a beach walk. So one of my bits of self-care during all of this is at the end of January, when I started looking after a little dog and I had to walk every day, I decided I was going to walk every day this year. And I've kept to it so far. And fortunately, I'm a couple of miles away from a huge empty beach. And I've also got a hill behind us. So I'm really, really lucky. So this afternoon, after I prepared for these 2 talks I'm doing and a client session I'm doing, I'm going to go and take myself off to the beach for a couple of hours.
Beautiful day for it, I think.
Yeah.
So download in the link below the video. Good luck with that. And thank you everyone for watching this. I'll be back next week with a new talk on Thursday at 11 o'clock. That is the iStorm Live Lounge. So take care of yourselves, look after yourselves, stay safe, stay sane, and I'll see you soon. Bye for now.